News of al-Baghdadi's death was a rare moment in recent memory that brought the U.S. and Turkey together. But just a few days later, the Democratic-led House, already critical of President Trump's Syria policy, dashed any hope of rebuilding trust between Washington and Ankara. U.S. representatives voted to recognize the events that took place during the collapse of the Ottoman Empire in the First World War as genocide. Turkey vehemently opposes that accusation. The timing of that non-binding resolution was no coincidence. The vote coincided with the approval of sanctions against Turkey. It was in response to Operation Peace Spring, which successfully established a terror-free zone in northern Syria. Deeply frustrated at U.S. President Trump's recent policy in Syria, which helped pave the way for creating that terror-free zone, House Democrats took to the floor to publicly rebuke Turkey. But the Turkish government was quick to hit back.
The timing of this resolution is questionable. It is non-binding, but that does not mean that we will not react. We have already given our reaction. We all know the reason behind this. It's because Turkey's military operation in Syria has foiled the game of some countries.
So just how suspicious was the timing of this vote? And what effect will this have on relations between the U.S. and Turkey? And joining me now in the studio is Onur Erim, who is an analyst specializing on Turkey-U.S. relations. And from Vienna, we have Klaus Jurgens, who is a political analyst and a contributor at Daily Sabah. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you here. Klaus, I want to start with you. Could this move by the U.S. House create another diplomatic crisis between Turkey and the U.S.?
Hello, thank you for having me. Yes, indeed. I think it happened at the wrong time, the worst of all times. First of all, it was always wrong. We should remember that the initiator of infamous Resolution 296, the Right Honourable Mr. Schiff, he was working for 19 years to get this motion through the House. And previous US presidents simply did not do it.
Yes.
Donald Trump, the president, mentioned in 2017, well, he has a certain inkling about it. It is definitely totally ludicrous in time and wrong in any case. Yes, I think it will lead to a hopefully short-lived deterioration of bilateral talks, not from the Turkish side, but Turkey is simply making a point for many, many years, decades. Turkey has said, we are not against discussing this issue, but please remember there were Turkish victims as well. The numbers are highly exaggerated, and why not set up a new impartial historian commission instead of leaving it to the floor of the politicians? But yes,
we see the Armenian side has always refrained from opening the archives. This is Turkey has been saying that let's open the archives and let's historians decide on that. But Onur, it used to be a seasonal maneuver taking place in April. Can you talk about the timing of this vote? It also coincided with the sanctions bill against Turkey's Operation Peace Spring, and these two decisions were taken on Turkey's Republic Day. So how significant is it?
It is. I think there was only one other time that this trying to pass this resolution did not fall on April 24th, as the Armenian diaspora always tried to do. Yes, it's definitely not a coincidence that these two bills were on the House floor at the same time, and it's no coincidence that it fell on October 29th, Turkey's Republic Day.
So is this an insult to Turkey?
It absolutely is. It's uncalled for, especially on the so-called Armenian genocide resolution. It's ludicrous to even talk about what's inside that or what it entails. I believe there is not one single credible historian in the world that is not discussing at least the both sides of this issue. It's not like a one-sided thing, as the Armenian diaspora is trying to push. What I can't figure out, to be honest with you, is whether this happened with the help or with the push of President Trump, or it happened, despite him. So we'll see. We'll see, because there's a huge difference. This may not, because this is such a big and a hurtful move from a so-called NATO ally,
Yes,
from a so-called strategic partner. I mean, you don't do this to your worst enemy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
I want to get back to you, Klaus. Is the House, do you believe, manipulating the events of the past to stand against both Trump and Erdogan? Because it seems that the two leaders have got what they wanted from the Syrian conflict. What do you make of it?
I would not entirely buy into the argument that the events as unfolding in Syria only led to the passing of Resolution 296. As I've mentioned before, it was 19 years in the making, perhaps even longer. It only reinvigorated it. Yes, indeed, President Trump says, America first, let's bring our boys back home, albeit step by step. And President Erdogan rightly said, we want to have a safe zone to stop terror threats from reaching our soils, but most and much more importantly, often overlooked in Western media, to create a safe haven, a peaceful place one more time for up to 2 million displaced men, women and families. Now, you can argue both men have gotten something out of it, but I think I was in touch since Tuesday very closely with members of the Turkish diaspora and people back home. And they said the only thing this Resolution 296 will actually achieve is that the support for President Erdogan cross-party will be even bigger. The country, Turkey, will unite against these accusations and simply will say it is null and void, same as the foreign minister has already said.
Because, Klaus, polls indicate 90% of Turks don't recognize the events as genocide, and 4 parties out of 5 in parliament and 90% of voters support the Syrian operation. But there was a statement from Democratic House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Eliot Engel of New York. He spoke after resolutions passed the House. Let me read it to you. It's interesting. President Trump has let Erdogan off scot-free for a heinous assault that is destabilizing the region and threatening international security. President Trump and President Erdogan are responsible for the catastrophe in northeast Syria. They both must be held accountable. So, Onur, what do you make of this statement? Do they act on vengeance or something?
It may be. As I said,
and what is the mood in the US?
I was very cautious as to how to evaluate this passing of this resolution, especially on the 2 of them on the same day and on October 29th. Because, as I said, I'm still keeping my reserve if Trump had anything to do with this. He probably did not, but let's keep a reserve. But on the other side, we have, first of all, besides all these issues, we have a major war between Congress and Trump. Not just the Democratic side, both sides of the aisle. That's number one. Number two, we have a major disagreement with the Congress and Trump on Syria.
Yes.
And then, forget about everything else. They're in an election year, and there is what seems to
Trump
be now.
Trump is dealing with this impeachment.
Exactly. That impeachment thing is, if you asked me this about 6 months ago, I would have said, you know what, I don't think that will lead to an impeachment or a possible impeachment. But now, day after day, with new testimonies coming out, it seems more close to reality than it's not. So there's a lot of issues that may not necessarily be concerning Turkey.
But tell me this, is this a sign that when it comes to Turkey, President Trump has no control or power whatsoever on the House Republicans?
First of all, I don't think Trump has any power on Republicans at all, period. Not just on this issue. Now, when this bill or resolution goes down its path, Trump does have few things that he could do to sway votes the other way or to kill it altogether. He has this power. But what will that cost to him, and whether or not he will want to incur that cost is a different story. So we'll see. We'll see down the path. This all seems to me, to be honest with you, I know it's a very, maybe a different way of looking at things, but I'm thinking all this is happening not just so much about Turkey. This is actually a war between the Congress and Trump. And right now we are very, very popular in many ways in the U.S. in the Capitol Hill. Yes. So we're actually, our name is in the middle, being tossed around on different issues.
Unfortunately. So, Klaus, what's next? You think for the two-country relations? Is there a room for the two countries to mend their relations, or we just have to wait and see?
Well, I hope there will be a way to mend the relations. As people say, 24 hours are a long time in politics. I think, yes, I fully agree with my esteemed colleague that basically the House wanted to rather punish President Trump instead of directly President Erdogan. It's an internal fight, and elections are coming up. It's a little bit like what we see Brexit time now in the United Kingdom. We should not forget that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, decided to move the motion. And same like John Bercow in the United Kingdom, she could have had the power actually to disallow it, although the House Rules Committee said we want to push it. Now, this was unfortunately a given fact once the House Rule Committee has said, yes, we want to push it, and then on Tuesday things developed. I think both sides will come together again over time, but there is a cautious warning. I think this time the Republic of Turkey and the Turkish people and the foreign minister and the president, they should be very careful and cautious, not after 1 week or two say, let's just forget about it, it's only a political decision, legally non-binding, completely different than what happened in Switzerland some time ago with the denial as a punishable offense. It is a political decision. Now you can say just shrug it off and forget about it, but I think this would be wrong. I think it should be discussed openly and frankly between both governments to make sure, perhaps, I'm not saying can it be revoked, that would be very difficult, but can it be sidelined? I think it, indeed, unfortunately, it has put a dent into bilateral relations exactly at the moment where both sides should cooperate ever more closely.
All right.
Yes, very unfortunately.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, gentlemen. Klaus, thank you for joining us from Vienna, and Onur, thank you for joining me on the set. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.